Hi there, my name is Destini Moody, registered dietitian and board certified specialist in sports nutrition, and today I'm going to be answering the question, what is the minimum amount of protein you can eat without losing your muscle? Let's dive in. If you're watching this as an athlete or a casual weightlifter or someone that performs any kind of activity that requires an appreciable amount of muscle, so bodybuilding competition or CrossFit, you already know that you need to eat protein in order to gain and maintain more muscle and strength. However, do you know the minimum amount of protein that you can get away with eating before you start to lose your muscle? Whenever you're on a bulking or a cutting cycle and you're trying to change your body composition, it's well known that your protein needs are quite high. And for the most part, these are protein needs that you need to sort of maintain from your diet if you want to maintain that muscle. For the most part. But as we know, life happens. Sometimes you're not around your protein shake, and sometimes you can't get around to dinner right away. Sometimes you're sick, sometimes you're injured. You just can't meet your protein needs 100% of the time. So it's important to know what's the minimum amount of protein that you can eat in certain situations if you need to. So everyone's going to be different, right? You're different in how much lean mass you hold, or what your training schedule is like, or what your individual protein metabolism is like. So there's not one set number for everyone, obviously, but I can give you some standards that you can look at to see where you might fall in terms of how much protein you can eat and get away with without there being too much catabolism. So when talking about this topic, we need to differentiate between two different types of people that perform in resistance training. There are seasoned weightlifters, so people that have already been lifting for about 6 months or so consistently. And then there are newbie weightlifters, or people that are just starting out, because protein recommendations and guidelines are very, very different for these two in terms of what stokes catabolism. So let's start with beginner weightlifters. The thing with beginner weightlifters is they can make a lot more mistakes and be a lot more sloppy with their diet because they're still benefiting from what we call newbie gains. Newbie gains is this phenomenon that we talk about in the fitness world that describes people that have just started weightlifting, and the phenomenon that occurs whenever they're gaining a massive amount of muscle and in some cases losing fat at the same time while they're starting their weightlifting regimen. Like I said before, this normally only happens during the first 6 months of consistent weight training, and once that magic is gone, you can never get it back. So you're sort of in a very forgiving stage of your weightlifting journey whenever you first start out. So don't take it for granted. So, according to some studies that were conducted to find out what's the minimum amount of protein you can get away with eating before you start to break down your muscle, it was found that in people that were new to weightlifting, so people who just started within 6 months, were able to eat only 0.5 grams per pound of body weight without losing any muscle mass. So, if you're a 150-pound person, you would only need to eat about 75 grams of protein per day and still maintain your muscle. Now there is a caveat to this, and this is for both new weightlifters and seasoned weightlifters. If you're in a calorie deficit, meaning that you're trying to eat in a deficit to lose fat or lose weight, you may have to eat just a little bit more just because your body is more vulnerable to losing your muscle than when you're eating a regular diet when you're in a deficit. If you're a long-term iron pumper though, you can't be as sloppy, all right? Studies that have explored this topic have found that people that are seasoned weightlifters can only get away with eating about 0.7 grams per pound of body weight per day without losing any of their muscle mass. So this comes out to about 105 grams of protein per day for a 150-pound individual. And these studies were done on people that were lifting weights 4 to 5 days per week, which is about the normal split for your typical weightlifter. Now, I have to throw some asterisks up here. Just because you can get away with eating this amount of protein before you start to lose muscle doesn't mean that you should. Don't make a habit of it, okay? Obviously, you're going to get optimal results the more you stick to your macros and the more consistently you can stick to them. I mean, that's just common sense. The subjects in these studies only fell short on their protein goals for about 2, 3, 4 weeks, not for a long period of time, because the longer you go without meeting your protein needs, again, common sense will tell you, the more risk you are from actually losing your muscle mass. And since there aren't very many accessible ways to accurately measure how much lean mass you have, the amount that you lose could be very easy to lose track of. You should only reduce your protein intake if life happens. Say you forgot your meal prep at lunch that day, or say you're out of town with family, or it's the holidays and you're trying to take a break from meal prepping. You're sick, you're injured, you're in the hospital, you don't have access to your normal diet. Anything that keeps you from meeting your protein needs for an extended period of time, I get it. Follow these guidelines, but don't do it just because you can. You are not going to keep your optimal amount of strength, power, and athletic performance if you get sloppy with your macros. Okay, I'm done scolding now. Let me tell you one more important thing you need to know if you're worried about losing too much of your muscle. Even if you're in a position where you can't meet your protein needs or any of your other macronutrient or calorie needs for an extended period of time, you still need to make sure that you're weightlifting or doing some sort of resistance training. If you're injured, don't skip your PT. This is really, really important. I hear from athletes all the time who are injured or who aren't able to eat or they don't have their normal appetite say, well, I don't really need all of this protein. I don't really need all of this food because I'm not lifting right now. Not true. Not the case. Continuing to lift even just 2 days a week will go a long way in maintaining your muscle mass and preventing your body from any further muscle loss. If anything, staying sedentary will make you lose more muscle. Anybody who's been in a cast or they've been on crutches or they can't move around a lot and they had a lot of muscle mass to begin with will tell you how rapidly you can lose muscle just by not going to the gym. By continuing to lift even when you can't meet your protein needs, that act of lifting is releasing hormones and it's releasing messages to your body to tell it that it still needs to maintain this strength. And these messages are powerful and go a long way in telling your body, hey, don't break down this muscle yet. I still need it. So, what's Destiny's bottom line? The bottom line is whether you're a beginner or a seasoned weightlifter and for some reason, whatever reason, you can't get around to meeting your protein goals consistently, you can stand to get away with eating about 0.5 to 0.7 grams per pound of your body weight of protein and still be in a good spot. But, and I've already hammered this point home, don't do it just because you can. Only do it if you have to. And while you're waiting to get back on your feet with your diet, still make sure that you're following your normal exercise regimen. If you can't follow your normal 4 to 5 days, even just 2 days a week will help to prevent that catabolism and that muscle breakdown that we're all afraid of. This is the Athlete's Dietitian, signing off.